Hey, there you are, Team Healthy. Hello, it's good to see you today. I'm glad to be with you on our normal Wednesday time. Okay, I'm going to give you an announcement here, and stay with me. Don't panic. We're only going to have two more today and next week live feeds for the rest of this year because Christmas comes on a Wednesday, and then obviously the next week, New Year's Day is on a Wednesday, so we're not going to do this on a holiday. And then starting in January, I'm going to set up a whole new format. This is a little business element here that I'm sharing with you. Rather than doing the live, one of the things that we found in the same format that I'm normally doing here on Wednesdays, one of the things we found that quite a number of our viewers have not learned to access our Q&A time by clicking through the live tab and or they don't have their notifications on, and so we miss a whole lot of viewers, frankly, that would want to go through the Q&A time. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a different format, and I'm going to do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And so it's going to be at the 10 o'clock time, Central Time in US. So it's going to be an hour earlier. And those of you who are in New Zealand, figure it out. Fred, you down there in Australia, figure it out. I don't know what it is there. I mean, sometime the next day, I guess. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to receive your questions, and then we're going to start a whole new concept, a new series that we're calling Unbound. And the whole idea is how we can stay unbound from the bond to the narcissistic individuals. And I'm going to take questions from you, and then the versions are going to be shortened up from the live feed. And they're going to be more like the same length of a regular video. I'm going to continue to take questions from you, and then I'll respond to them in the Unbound series that's going to come out twice a week. And frankly, that allows me to tape it in advance so that when I'm out of town or when I have some other kind of stuff going on, we don't have to miss that. And so just know that we had a little bit of a program change. The concept is going to be the same in that I love hearing from you and I'm going to respond to you. Frankly, Team Healthy is so much a part of what we do here. I mean, I truly do listen to you and pay attention. That I want you to know that I honor you by trying to hear your questions and then respond. That allows me to be more pertinent to where you are. So that's going to be coming up beginning the first full week of January. Okay, and we're going to go to that new format. So watch for the Unbound series, and that's what each one of them is going to be called. I'm looking forward to it because I'm going to be able to be my more relaxed self than I am on my videos. Not that I'm not relaxed when I'm doing the videos, but it's just going to have a different feel to it. So just know, and I'll be actually sending out an intro video to just the channel in general. A week or two out, just to make sure everybody else out there knows. Guys, those of you who do the live feed, y'all are you're the core. And so I wanted you to know first. Okay, we've got some interesting questions that have come in today. And one of the things we're emphasizing in today's session is that narcissists don't view connections in the same way that you and I do. And it's important for us to be very aware of that, simply because they want you to think, well, if there's a problem, it must be because you haven't done something right. When in fact, no, maybe if there's a problem, maybe they're not approaching it with a healthy way of thinking, or they don't have healthy intentions. And as a result, it's kind of doomed before it has a chance to even get off the ground. So I want to go through these with that in mind, knowing that the more you understand where they're coming from and how they want to mess with you, then you're not going to get pulled in by their shenanigans. Okay. So the first person says, and I find this to be really interesting because she's trying hard to respond well, but it's not working very well. This person says, how do you gray rock someone when they aren't actually saying anything, but just glaring at you like they're disappointed or offended or have some sort of negative emotion toward you? I can gray rock words generally, but facial expressions hit me like a ton of bricks. So you have this notion where apparently somebody's being pretty passive aggressive. And so this person is thinking, well, I just don't need to let them get under my skin. When we talk about gray rock, we talk about you having a rather dull and detached response to someone else's manipulations. So if someone comes along and says, you're one of the worst individuals I've ever known, and I want to make sure that you know that you're the cause of all my misery. Let's suppose they're saying that. Well, the pathological response would be for you to argue back and try to prove your point and tell them how awful they are. The gray rock response would be detachment. I realize we think differently. That's it. You just aren't going to tangle with them. That's what we mean when we talk about gray rock. This person, though, is saying, well, they're not saying anything. How do I gray rock when they're not saying anything? They just glare at me. Let's keep in mind that when we talk about going gray rock, and this is one of my Les Carter pet peeves. I really, really don't like using techniques on people. Okay. Well, I'm going to pull out that gray rock technique. I'm just going to go dull and disinterested. That's what I'm going to do. It's not a technique. That smacks of manipulation. But instead, gray rock is a mindset. Gray rock starts with the notion that says there are just some people who genuinely don't want to hear from me. They genuinely are willing to smack me down verbally or sometimes otherwise whenever I have something to say. Whenever I do try to explain myself, it just turns into an ugly entanglement. I don't really need to continue to waste my effort trying to get some form of coordination from someone who really doesn't want to coordinate. They just want to fight and they want to try to gain superiority. And so gray rock is a mindset that says, I'm not playing that game. And so you just give dull, detached kind of responses, not because I'm trying to show you something, but because I'm trying to protect me so I don't get, I don't get slung all the way down to the ditch with that other individual. Now, gray rock typically is required when you have somebody who is very aggressive toward you. By the way, we got a couple of questions here that are talking about boundaries in a few minutes, so I'm going to be talking about that too. When somebody's being really aggressive, the last thing you need to do is get entangled with them. And so at some point, you just decide, I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to go quiet. I'm going to get into a different room, or if it's at work, I'm going to busy myself with something else. I just don't need to stay messed up with somebody else. Now, let's keep in mind that this person is saying, well, the person that I want to gray rock just glares at me. And so it's kind of like they beat me to the punch. No, that's passive aggressive. They're just being deliberately non cooperative. But notice the word aggression, passive aggression. They're still being aggressive toward you. And so, gray rock is a psychological mindset that says if you think that I'm somehow going to be all completely discombobulated and I'm going to be totally blown away by your behaviors toward me, then think again. I'm just not going to do that. So if somebody, all they want to do is glare at you, then busy yourself with something else. Or if you need to remove yourself physically, if you need to busy yourself with other things, or if you just need to get away. I don't know if that's somebody else's house and you just walk away. But it's your way of saying, nice try. But if you think that's going to make me feel dysregulated, I have more strength from the inside out than you think. Gray rock is about claiming your strength and then detaching from their game playing. That's what, so you make sure you know that distinction. Now, this next question about boundaries. This kind of goes hand in hand with this gray rock thing. This person says the term boundaries isn't a clear enough phrase for everyday people. Okay. It's one of those things that you have to explain in great detail until a better catchphrase comes along. What is your best explanation of the word boundaries? Well, I'm glad you asked. Now, there's some individuals who think that boundaries means that you know how to tell somebody no. In fact, another person had commented to me before that there's a real stubborn man in her extended family. And whenever he says, no, I'm not going to cooperate with you. And then you call him out, then he'll say, I'm just setting boundaries. No, you're just being a jerk. Boundaries doesn't mean that you get to be a jerk and say no. And if they don't like it, that's tough. Boundaries starts, and here's that person asked, what's my definition of boundaries? Here it is. Boundaries starts with you having a solid definition of a healthy you. That's the beginning point. What characteristics do you want to have to define yourself? Now, if you think that yelling and screaming and being stubborn and argumentative is part of a healthy you, okay, knock yourself out. The narcissist wants to draw you into that, but I'm hoping you can decide, that doesn't work for me. My definition of a healthy personality is steadiness and calmness, self restraint, respect, honor, decency. And if you over there are trying to make me somebody other than that, I don't take my marching orders from you. I don't require you to have to fulfill certain requirements so that I can live inside my definition of me. So what you then do is you take that definition of yourself and you apply it distinctly to the various scenarios that you find yourself in. For example, let's suppose that you're with somebody at work or in a social setting, and they become very argumentative. You can establish boundaries by thinking, if that's the only way that this conversation is going to go, I'm going to excuse myself and I'm going to move on to something that makes more sense. Or if they keep saying, "Prove it," tell me why you think the way that you are. I can think to myself, and this is my boundaries. Well, I define myself as somebody who's willing to coordinate. I don't think where I'm getting coordination from that person, so I'm just going to have calm firmness. That's one of the ingredients on my healthy list. I'm going to have calm firmness, and so I'm going to say, well, I've already explained to you who I am and what I feel, and I don't really have a whole lot to add. That's part of your boundaries. Or it may be that somebody's telling you you need to drop your priorities and do what I say instead. And you're thinking, well, what you're wanting me to do is to ignore me, and self-care is part of what I believe is as a healthy ingredient. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of myself. Sometimes you want to be helpful, so sometimes you work with them. Other times, it all depends on where that person's coming from. You decide for yourself what makes sense. And so boundaries means you have a good self-definition, and then you learn to apply it in ways that are required when somebody else says, I'm going to step all over you. And then when someone comes along and says, well, I think you're stupid or you don't know what you're talking about, basically what they're saying is you don't understand what a healthy way of life is. And you're thinking, well, actually, as best as I can discern, I think I really am living in a healthy manner. That continues to be your boundaries. And so it's like, well, I know that we think differently. And that's part of the gray rocks, you see. And so I'm hoping you can see that boundaries is much more than telling someone to shut up or telling someone to get out of here or telling someone I'm not going to do what you want me to do. It's a much deeper kind of thing, and it's anchored in your own analytical thinking, and then it becomes wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge that's applied. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with. That's boundaries, applied knowledge. Okay. Hope that settles it for you there. Okay. Now, you guys know that I love my dog Gus. Did y'all know that? By the way, okay, I'm going to take an aside. I got a question coming about animals. Gus used to come to the office with me when I first got him. He's going to be 11 years old in April, and I got him when he was 10 months old. And literally, I got him on a Wednesday. The following Monday, he started going to the office with me. And he's just a chill dog if you haven't noticed that. And Gus would just he would typically bark. He's a terrier. He'd bark at the first person that come in for an 8 o'clock appointment, and then he wouldn't bark at anybody for the rest of the day. And when he barked, it's his way of saying hello. I mean, it wasn't mean. And then he'd always sit right next to me in my chair, and then in the morning, and then in the afternoon he'd pick a chair somewhere else and sit. And sometimes he would go if he felt like he needed to. He would sit next to the person that was talking and give him comfort. I mean, he's a great therapy dog. I don't know if you hear him. He's standing outside my door right now barking. He wants to come in with daddy, but this is live. Anyway, all that to say, that's just a complete aside. This person says, can a person who is very good and attached to animals, and then in parentheses, a dog, for instance, and aware of their needs, be a narcissist? Okay, so that you've got a person that's very good with a dog. I mean, they do show empathy for the animal, but then they meet their needs and can put themselves in but then when they meet their needs and can put themselves in their place, they don't. Or is this more on a functional level? Okay, so in other words, they can be nice to a dog, but then when it comes time to meet someone else's needs, they don't really meet the needs of human beings. What's going on there? That's the general gist. A little confusing there. And the answer is yeah. It's really interesting to watch some individuals who are dog owners or horse owners or cat owners or whatever, rabbits, whatever they have. And it's like, oh, I love to be around animals. In fact, I'd rather have animals than human beings. And some of them, that's the only thing they want to do. And you can have a really selfish sister or a husband or a coworker or friend. They can be super selfish, but they fawn all over that animal. What's going on? And it's real simple to figure that one out. And that is, well, there's an enormous power differential typically between a human being and their pet. One is the superior being, if you will. Sometimes I wonder the human who can teach the animal to do tricks. Sometimes they may teach you to do a few tricks, but there's a power differential that's there. And so you can have that narcissistic person who can just nuzzle all over the animal. It's like, yeah, I'm in total charge here. This person doesn't call me out when I'm mean or when I'm harsh. This person doesn't have any demands other than me scratch them behind the ear and give them a few treats here and there and make sure I take them out for a couple of walks a day, and we're good. But then humans require a whole lot, like accountability, or they want me to be empathetic and I have to do that, or they want me to coordinate. No, I don't do that. The dog coordinates with me, but I don't have to coordinate with you human beings. And as a result, sometimes narcissists will retreat with their animals only, and then it's like, yeah, the rest of you people, I can't contain you nearly as well as I can contain Fluffy over here, and so you don't count. And so it's really interesting to see that dynamic. I'm thinking of one particular person that I knew that was extremely overbearing, but he had a dog, and interestingly, the dog's name was Tiny because it was a little small dog, and Tiny, was easily dominated by this guy, and he was mean to everybody else, but he sure had his nice dog. And so there's a huge difference when a narcissist seemingly shows interest to a simple animal who can't really reciprocate, is not going to. And then they think, oh, well, that being the case, I'm going to give you a lot of reinforcement. But then human beings, it's like, well, it's far more complex than that, sir. And I want to make sure that you're tuned into my complexities. And that narcissist says, no, thanks, I don't do complexity. I get it. So that would be the my take on something like that. Okay. Now this one. This person says, I'm genuinely baffled by a narcissist's inability to receive a glaringly obvious helpful input. For example, my husband is selfish in every sense of the word. I've asked him many times not to cough or sneeze into his hands. Sometimes he'll want to hold hands with me just a few minutes afterward. It's a matter of hygiene and common courtesy. What gives? And then in parentheses, and that's just one of many insensitivities. Nothing I say moves the needle. Okay, I think that's legitimate. Whenever you have any kind of relationship, there are going to be all sorts of small considerations to maintain. For example, let's just say that you have a tight deadline. You need to be somewhere, and it kind of needs to be a hard deadline. You have to pick up a kid at school or something like that, and someone's going to come along with you, and they lollygag, and they have to comb their hair, and they have to do other kind of things, and they're consistently 15 minutes late. That communicates something in those little small moments. That person who's chronically not very time conscious is saying, nothing beyond my time parameters matters. You don't matter. Or when you say, hey, when you cough, don't just do it in your hands and then expect me to hold hands with you 4 minutes later, particularly after all of the pandemic we had a few years back. We all became pretty conscientious about hygiene with respect to that. And when a person says, well, okay, got it, and then 5 minutes later, they're coughing their hands, want to hold hands with you, or then they want to do whatever, that communicates. And so my thing is, well, I think you're onto something. Is sometimes, and you don't want to be obsessive compulsive about this, but I think that just to say, can we have some common courtesy with one another? What you're asking for is empathy. Notice that every time you cough in your hand and then you touch everything, particularly if you if you're coughing, it may be that you have some sort of virus or disease or something. I don't particularly want to have to pick up from whatever it is you have. I don't think that's a bad thing to say. And then when the narcissist clearly, or that other person clearly implies, when you ask me to show consideration, just goes right over me. They don't have that same thing. One of the most healthy characteristics that a human being can have, and again, this is research based, is conscientiousness. And when a person says, I'm not that conscientious, I don't really think of what happens to other people beyond my little small circle here. When you say something like that, or when you ask, it doesn't matter because you see, the only thing that matters is me in the moment. And so I do think that empathy can be taught. And then when a person is much older and it's just not there, it tells me this person never learned empathy. By the way, my little 6-year-old granddaughter, whenever she coughs, and of course at schools, that's germ factories there. The teacher has taught everybody cough into your arm. That way you're not going to spread germs with your hands and all like that. And I remember a year or more ago, she said, "Now, pops, when you cough, this is how you have to do it." Okay, got it. And okay, you got a 5 and 6-year-old kid that's like, okay, I can do that. And then I would ask her, well, why do they ask you to do that? And she'll say, because we don't need to spread germs. We need to show. How does she put it? We need to show kindness, I think is what she says. And you can learn that. If a 6-year-old can learn that and actually know the principle behind it, then a 48-year-old person could, you'd think. And the fact that 48-year-old person says, "No, I don't take input like that." That tells me, yeah, I'm satisfied that I know everything I need to know, and any kind of input from you, it's not there, it's not meaningful. And what it says is you have a person who is not really tuned into the little small elements that imply love and kindness and courtesy and all the rest. And as a result, unfortunately, you're just going to have to factor that in. We go back to boundaries. Boundary says, well, I do ask for courtesy. And I think courtesy is reasonable. And when the narcissist implies by their actions, it's not reasonable to me, I don't care about it, then that's something I'm going to have to factor in. And then when that person is coughing, I'll remove myself. I won't hold hands. I've known people that'll point blank say, I noticed that you were coughing, and I don't want to do that. Or I've had people say, somebody will cough in their hand, and then literally 10 seconds later, they'll want to shake hands. They give the fist bump instead. I mean, you got some things that you can do there, but you're dealing with somebody who has just kind of a selfishness on a raw kind of basis. Okay. Now this next one, and I hope you're going to pick up on the same question, the angle of the question as I did. This person says, "How do you not feel upset when in the middle of negative talk from when you're in the middle of negative talk from the narcissist? It makes me feel awful and sad and mad all at once." Now, do you pick up on the element that I pick up on? How do you not feel upset? The implication is I'm not supposed to feel upset. Okay, when she says then there's negative self-talk and I feel awful and sad and mad all at once, I'm thinking, well, why is it wrong for you to feel that way? Of course you do. If somebody's coming down hard on you and telling you you don't know what you're talking about, or I don't care about you, or you're just below me in so many words, for you to say, doesn't affect me. Well, it almost means that you have to just be a a boulder. Nothing gets to me. It just bounces right off. I know that there are times when I can feel like, this is so frustrating, or it's so annoying that somebody would be that rude that they would feel the need to speak ill directly to me. So I don't think that's a great question. Just to be honest, how do I not feel? You do feel. The question is, what is my feeling trying to tell me each time that it registers on the inside of me? I'm being spoken to in a disrespectful way. I'm being shown disregard. And then I feel, as she puts it, awful, sad, and mad. What does that say? Those emotions are there as an alarm system, and that's a good way for you to look at your emotions. It's your psychological alarm system, and as the alarms are going off, the emotion, the message is probably one of self-preservation. Somebody needs to take care of my worth as a human being. And it's sure not that person over there that's hurling insults. Somebody needs to offer me, honor and respect the legitimacy of my needs. Somebody needs to say, I respect the fact that you have opinions, and that person over there isn't doing it. What am I going to do? And then when you go into that self-preserving mode, it's like, well, if you want to disagree with me, or if you want to treat me harshly, that tells me you have a worldview that allows you to diminish other individuals, and that's not consistent with my worldview. That's what your emotions are trying to tell you. I have just run into something that's very inconsistent with what I believe in. And then you can go to your therefore place. Therefore, in my anger and in my, well, what did she say? Sadness, and in my being feeling awful, I'm going to seek out ways that I can not be exposed to that. And I can be exposed to something that's either neutral or more affirming. And there are times when you can let it be known. I know that you have some, this is you speaking to the narcissist. I know that you have some things that you want me to know, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the method of communication that's coming through right now doesn't work. And that being the case, I'm going to go ahead and remove myself, self-preservation. I'm going to tend to my needs. You're not. You don't have to say that, all of that. And if you have something you want to say, if you want to give it to me with decency, I'd be willing to have a dialogue with you. But if this is all you have to offer, then I'm going to excuse myself. And so rather than saying I don't want to feel what I feel, instead I feel it. Now the question is, what is my feeling trying to direct me toward, and what are my alternatives based on the alarms that are going off associated with that emotion? And one of the things that I would do constantly with my patients would be, okay, what are your emotions trying to tell you? Because something inside of you is being aroused. There's probably something legitimate. Let's tap into that. That's the way we want to go. Okay. Okay. This next question is one that I've received hundreds of times through the years. Okay. This person, plain and simple, you've heard one of the 10 commandments: honor thy father and thy mother. This person says, part of my struggle with my narcissistic mother is that we're supposed to honor our parents. How does that factor in with boundaries with somebody is so difficult? Okay, we go back to boundaries again. Um, okay, let's think about that. Is it a good thing to honor your mother? Yeah. I mean, she brought you into the world. I mean, she had, had to go through some work to get there. And, that person has been more or less assigned, if you will, the task of tending to your needs. And now I'm assuming you're a full blown adult. And you like to think that we can have a relationship where there's a goodness that flows in both directions. And, one of the tasks of any parent is to make themselves less and less necessary as the years go by. In other words, when you were 3 years old, I still had to help you dress, but when you're 48 years old, we probably don't need to worry about that anymore. Or if you were 4 years old, I needed to talk with you about how to treat your big brother. When you're 62 years old, I probably don't need to do that. And there can be just a change and a shift where you look at yourself much more as peers or as equals with respect to intellect and capability and all of that. In this case, mom doesn't want to do that. Mom apparently wants to treat you in a very demeaning kind of way. And if mom is very insulting or very ungrateful or just chronically negative and very difficult to live with, and if you're thinking, well, I'm trying to honor her by showing respect and goodness and dignity, but sometimes you've got to have at least a certain amount of receptivity on that person's part. And if it doesn't come, it's like, well, I'm willing to do my share, but she is making clear that she doesn't want to participate. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hear the message that she has to offer me. I don't want to participate in mutual regard. I don't want to participate in mutual respect or dignity. This is not mutuality. It's still one way. I'm in charge. You're not. Shut up and do what I tell you to do. And if that's the way that we have it in adult to adult, and there's still this very strong hierarchical way of thinking, lots of condescension, then your next task is to say, well, I still honor the position of motherhood. I am glad we have good mothers. In this case, I'm going to need to honor my mother from a distance. And honoring doesn't mean that you have to subject yourself to abuse. You don't have to subject yourself to chronic insults and mistreatment. Well, I'm just trying to honor. No, you're not really doing it. You're actually enabling a very bad habit on that person's behalf. And I don't think honoring is the same as behaving, or as is. I don't think honoring is the same as enabling, is what I meant to say. And so sometimes you'll need to say, well, the mindset continues to be there. I honor motherhood or fatherhood, whichever it might be. But sometimes I need to do it from a distance because I'm doing no one, including the parent, I'm doing no one any favors by saying, here, there's my face. Go ahead and slap on it another time. Nope, you don't need to do that. And so it's the mindset that you have. And if she doesn't want to participate in a healthy way, then she's made her choice, and you honor, if you will, that negative choice that she's made. When I say honor, it's like, go ahead. You get to be negative and harsh if that's what you want to do. You're a free person. I honor the fact that you're free. I happen to be such that I don't want to be the recipient, the enabler to that. And I don't want to be the recipient of negativity. And I think that's fair. So it's the mindset that you carry. Okay. Another question. This person says, the thing that surprises me most about narcissists is their constant bad mood. Uh, their walking around mood is anger, and it just feels insane. And then the question, is there any way to help them snap out of it? Now, with that question, is there any way to help them snap out of it? I'm going to guess that the person who wrote this question is one of your classic empaths. And I say that with the highest compliment. I think sometimes people say, "Well, I'm an empath," and that just means everybody's going to walk all over you. Nope, doesn't have to mean that. An empath is somebody that says, I want the best for other individuals. I want to know who they are, and I want to understand where they're coming from. I want to be aware of their backstory, and I want to be somebody that is able to be a good presence in someone else's life. That's the empath. And when you have somebody else that's like they're constantly in a bad mood, and the Debbie Downer, you say something and they say, well, let me tell you what's wrong with that. Then at some point it's like, man, it's like you're committed to your own anger. And actually, some of them are. It's really weird how that works. Keep in mind that narcissists do not understand and know love. And so, in the absence of love, what they seek is power, and they seek dominance. And so, if a person is in that mindset, well, power and dominance is a direct pathway towards anger and irritability. They're thinking, okay, when I approach you, I'm not approaching you with the notion that says, how can we establish love? They're approaching you with the thought that says, how can I establish my dominance? And so when you say, well, I don't want to be dominated, all right, I want to be treated well. It's like, nope, 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 nope. That's equality. And that doesn't work with my dominance. Now, they're not insightful enough to say that. But basically, you don't match pitch with what their goal is. And as an empath, you want to be conscientious. You want to be somebody who has goodness and decency. And so when when a person's in this chronic bad mood, it's their way of saying, I never knew how to love. I never knew how to develop the empathy, because you see that requires humility, and that requires laying down my ego. Either nobody taught me, or if they did, I just wasn't receptive at the time. And so I'm going to go ahead and be committed to power emotions. anger and condescension and agitation, all of that. That's what you're going to get from me. And so it's very much a subconscious thing. When I say that, it's so habituated that they hardly even think about it anymore. They're just it's just what is comes natural to them. But I'm hoping you can be habituated to DRC, dignity, respect, and civility, knowing that there are plenty of folks out there that it doesn't even cross their mind to think that way. That that one of the things that I've said is that a very low percentage, about 20% of the people in our world really do have the capacity and the willingness to apply analytical thinking in a very broad kind of way in their relationships. That means about 80% don't. And that doesn't mean all those 80% are narcissists. Narcissism is all about just giving over to the dark side. But a very, very high percentage of narcissists don't have the analytical thinking that would prompt them to say, why would I go around being in a bad mood? First of all, they don't see themselves in a bad mood. They just say, they think, I'm just around idiots. So they don't even have the insight to call a spade a spade. So anyway, know what you're dealing with and then proceed with the sadness, but with the honest realization, this is someone that I'm not going to be able to have a very close connection with. Okay. All right. This person says, it is impossible to hold someone accountable when they think you're not good enough to judge them or to say something about what they're doing wrong. They'll always bring up the historical evidence of your problems. How do we maneuver through this? Okay. So I've got apparently I've got a situation here where someone says, this person over here is being very difficult, and I want to hold them into accountability. I want to call them out and say, what you're doing doesn't work. We need to come up with a better way. And then that person who's receiving it says, you don't know what you're talking about. They go straight into the invalidation. I wonder how many of you have just had that knee-jerk reaction from the narcissist when you say there's a better way. Their natural reaction is something of in the effect of no. Don't you dare talk to me that way. You don't know what you're talking about. No, last week you did the same thing, and now they come up with all this kind of stuff, and it's just so common. One of the marks of a secure person is the willingness to just hear someone else. If someone were to come to me and say, Les Carter, there's something about you that bothers me, and you've done some things that have hurt my feelings. Well, immediately my reaction is, well, I don't mean to be that kind of person, and it can sting a bit. That's why you can't make your feelings go away. But in humility and in a certain amount of honesty, I have my blind spots. If someone says, you've done something that's really hurt me, then my response is going to be, well, help me understand why you would say that. Educate me, talk with me. And I'm not going to be listening for the purpose of invalidating whatever comes out next. And so healthy individuals can say, if there's some form of communication between myself and the other person that's not very flattering towards me, I'm willing to hear it. In fact, if anything, I probably need to hear it if I'm ever going to have any willingness or ability to grow. Yeah. Does that sound like something that the narcissist would say? Yeah, that's a great idea. I need to listen to people who have something that they are offended about that includes me. And when I know they couldn't think that way to save their life. They don't have the empathy. They're way that we go back to the dominance theme. They're way too into dominance. And so in order to receive input, you have to have a certain mindset of humility and equality. You have the right to have your thoughts and impressions just as I do. Narcissists don't think that way. And so this person says, how do we maneuver through this? We go back to boundaries again. Boundary says, well, if you want to insult me, I'm not going to participate. Or if you want to tell me that I can't do this, but I need to do that, I'm going to do what makes sense to me. And so you want to stay inside of your lane and control the one person you can control, which is yourself. The narcissist who is invalidating and judgmental is more or less saying, I see you as being a nobody. Boundaries begins with you defining yourself. And it's like, well, I don't define myself as a nobody. I define myself as a decent individual. And so I'm going to go ahead and remain inside my decency. And if you, Mr. or Mrs. Narcissist, choose not to see it, then we're probably not going to have a whole lot of coordination. And I'll do the minimum of what I need to do. And then I'm going to move on with individuals who are willing to have that reciprocal kind of relationship. That's hard. Now, another question, and this is it's about the word forgiveness. If there's one word that I've dealt with through the years with individuals, particularly when they've been abused, that draws a lot of mixed reactions, it's the word forgiveness. So this person says, should you forgive the narcissist because you were harmed? Excuse me. Should you forgive the narcissist because they were harmed by trauma? Okay. So again, probably another empath wrote that in. Should you forgive a narcissist because, if they are being mean to me, it's probably because they're carrying a lot of scars from the inside. And, I forgive them, because they don't even know who they are or what they're doing. My response is, well, I'm focused on the word should. I don't want to should. Does it make sense? Which is different. Should implies obligation. Free choice implies, common sense. Does it make sense to offer forgiveness or to forgive someone because I know that they're damaged from the inside out and their vitriol comes from a place of unresolved pain? And my thinking is that shows a great deal of depth. That shows a great deal of maturity. And if you can say, I forgive you, then because I know that when you're mean, there's something inside of you that's dreadfully broken. Now, the rest of it is, what does forgiveness mean? Does forgiveness mean I condone who you are? No. Does forgiveness mean keep on doing it because I'll just forgive you again? No. Does forgiveness mean I don't hurt or I don't ache because of your maltreatment? No. Forgiveness is actually it's a derivation of an accounting term. We have a ledger of pluses and minuses, and you're in debt right now. You've been so negative toward me that you owe me a whole lot. But the forgiving person says, why don't we just erase the debt because you don't have enough capability to eliminate the debt. You don't have the insight or the awareness, and so forgiveness means you don't owe me anything. And it's a form of detachment. It's a form of moving away. And so, one of the things that I believe when we're dealing with abusers is we forgive in the sense that we say, I'm going to require you to owe me nothing. You don't owe me a darn thing. What I am going to do is I'm going to protect myself, knowing that you're going to keep trying to keep me in this down position, and I'm not going to let you do that to me because I respect me too much. So forgiveness, in its classical sense, is a form of removal. It's a form of separating yourself off from that person. And yes, it's a good thing to do. And if you can have an understanding of what drives that person, all the better. So it's a different way of looking at that. I'm afraid that too many people look at forgiveness as just letting someone off the hook. It's like, no, basically, I'm getting off the hook because I don't want to be attached to somebody who's going to keep bringing me down. That's my take on it. Okay, guys, we're going to call it to a close for today. I hope this gives you some good things to think about. Go ahead and keep putting your questions in, keeping in mind what I said at the very top. We're gonna have our live feed again next week. That'll be on I guess that'll be the 18th, and then starting after the first year, then we're going to do the Unbound, and that's going to be of a different nature. But I'm still going to be fielding your questions. So I love hearing from you. You know that I really care about Team Healthy, and I talk to my wife a lot. Like I got a comment. I tell my wife I got a comment from someone over here, and I was so encouraged by what they said. And I mean, it's like, man, you got a community there. It's like, yeah, we really do. And I want you to be better because of your experience here. I want you to grow and encourage others to grow along with you. So just know I really like the synergy that we have here. So I will see you next week. I hope you have a good time between now and then, and be a person of peace. Know that I care. See ya. Bye-bye.